Hi, it's Kirby Summers, and I welcome you to my true crime podcast. Today is Tuesday, January the 16th, and I am going to talk just a little bit about life in a gilded cage. Before I get started, please like the podcast, and if you have not subscribed, take a moment to subscribe and hit the bell so that you can get notifications when I upload a new podcast. As most of you are aware, new documents in the Jeffrey Epstein case dropped commencing about 10 days ago. I believe additional documents will drop today and will go on for another 2 or 3 days. In Sarah Ransome's deposition, she talks about the girls taking turns in order to go and do what they were supposed to do. And if you're following this case, you know what I'm referring to. She also said that Ghislaine Maxwell, along with her lieutenant, Sarah Kellen, uh, kind of selected the girls on a rotation basis. So, as those of you who have read my memoir and those of you who have followed me for several years know, I was a trafficked person. During the time I was trafficked, it was in an apartment that was myself and three other girls, and there was a man who was let's call it the owner of I'm going to call it house. And he had an assistant who was a woman. We took turns so that in the instance that I was involved in, we were all supposed to arrive at or before 11 o'clock in the morning. We were supposed to just dress very casually to get to the location. However, bring a change of clothing. In the clothing, we were supposed to include lingerie and a dress. We were told never to wear pants. Men, I was told at the time, do not like women who wear pants. And apparently it's true because they like to touch your leg, if you're wearing a skirt. All right, so then we were told to take turns. Whoever arrived first would go first. Whoever arrived second would be selected to go second, okay? And so on and so forth. If there were 5 people who arrived, then the girl who went first would have to go again. So that's Sarah Ransome's explanation of having to go at sometimes more like at least 3 times to go and do what she was supposed to do makes sense to me. That is how Ghislaine Maxwell ran this operation. She did run it allegedly like a brothel. Okay. The other thing I'm going to briefly touch upon is some people are having trouble wrapping their minds around the fact that women who are born into kind of well-placed families in society, whether it's in the United States or another country, and among these women, the name Celina Midelfart, it's an unusual name. It's a really ugly name. I don't know why she kept that name. Um, uh, and I'm not making any allegations against Celina on this podcast. I will be writing an article about Celina and the fact that she's appeared over a dozen times on the flight logs. She has been photographed with Jeffrey Epstein multiple times, and she was reported by the mainstream media as being someone who dated Donald Trump. What I noticed during the time that I lived in a gilded cage as the slave to one of the billionaires connected not just to the Epstein case, but also to the Franklin case and connected to intel agencies, is that there are women who may be born with some money. Others might be born with a lot of money. Some of them, very few of these women marry men who they fall in love with. Others just want to continue a very lavish lifestyle with very lavish parties, and they will not marry for love, but they'll marry people for money. Also, I just want to use a couple, maybe just one example. If I want to add another, I will, but maybe I'm just going to use one example. What I noticed is that when I was taken to an elaborate event, number one, I needed to shop for a really expensive dress to be at that event. Okay. This one time I purchased a black strapless evening gown, very similar to the one that Marilyn Monroe wore in, her song, I think, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, later copied by Madonna. Mine was black and much more form-fitting than even the one that Madonna wore. I wore it with very long white gloves. I wore it with faux jewelry because I did not accept jewelry from anyone. I didn't normally wear jewelry, but at this event, I wore faux jewelry, which was frankly, each, like the necklace cost several $100s. The matching earrings, again, cost several $100s. So it wasn't just cheap jewelry. It was like higher end faux jewelry. The dress that I wore for this particular event cost more than any of the other dresses I'd ever bought up until that point. I was never reimbursed for this money. I was also, I was also told to have one of my own friends, a male friend, accompany me to the event where the person that I was supposed to see there would be there, but it would not be obvious that I was there with that person. However, if I looked better than the other women there at any of the events that I attended during that period of my life, and I did look better, frankly, than a lot of the women during that period, I would be sequestered into a corner by the person I was supposed to, who was supposed to sort of meet me after the party, and be quietly told, "You're attracting too much attention." And I was very shy. I tried not to talk too much to anyone there. But visually, I attracted a lot of attention. And I would be told almost as soon as getting to the party. So now I've spent money on the dress, money on the faux jewelry that I wore, spent time on makeup, on hair, ended up having a male friend pick me up, drive into the city, pick me up, take me to the function, only to be told after maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, that I had to leave and go wait at the designated hotel. None of this is pleasant, okay? During that period of my life, I kind of like just, shut down to a certain point emotionally. Everything hurt. The slights hurt me. Being talked about hurt me. Being used as an object hurt me. It was just difficult to just be a walking Barbie doll, because that's really all I was. I was a walking Barbie doll. So the fact that people say, "Oh, well, Celina Midelfart did not really, quote, either date Epstein or Trump," as she has been denying in the press, and she had money, so she has no need for so-and-so. That's not true. like I said, I met a lot of women who were with certain men that they probably would never have slept with or married or dated if the man did not have some money. Most of the men at these functions are ugly. And you know what? We've seen that, right? We've seen that with Glenn Dubin, who was not an attractive man, except Eva Dubin, who, by the way, had a lot of cosmetic surgery. I found photos of her when she was very young, and she had a complete redo before she later became Miss Sweden. And even when she was Miss Sweden, to be honest, I don't see that she's particularly attractive. She's thin, so she fits the mold. But there are women who are going to marry men just because they have money. That's happened historically, all right? It doesn't just happen in the United States, it happens in a lot of places. And for people to say, oh, well, that person was born into a good family, so that person did not need to be trafficked. I'm sorry to be a party pooper, but I'm also aware of how Epstein used certain women who were married into royalty, and I'm not going to name the person right now, who was blackmailed because she had a little bit of a racy past, and Epstein wanted her to marry a certain prince. She ended up marrying this prince, but she had to do several favors for Epstein. And when I use the word favor, I want your mind to go there, okay? Because that's what she had to do. So for people who are unaware that the world that Epstein moved in, and frankly, Donald Trump and Glenn Dubin, who worked for my abuser's family long before he ever met Epstein. And if you're unaware that Dubin only became a billionaire after he connected with Epstein and sold his company to none other than JP Morgan, Highbridge Capital, then you're not really looking at the details of this case. This case, you have to look at the details. You have to look at what superficially looks like you don't want to be bothered. That's where the information really is. That's where you can learn to connect the dots. You know, and don't be quick to dismiss people, because we know from experience also that Rachel Chandler, who is the heiress to the Chandler newspaper fortune, not just newspaper fortune, frankly, they had the most real estate, all right? They amassed an incredible real estate fortune. They created the real estate that would be later used for Hollywood. She's connected not just to Epstein, but also to NXIVM. So don't discredit or discount women who are supposed to have been born with a silver spoon in their mouth as having been part of what we have come to know as a trafficking ring. And by the way, this wasn't just a trafficking ring, okay? In my initial days when I was trafficked, it was I'm going to call it a normal trafficking operation, contained. It was not part of intelligence. We're talking about another layer here in the trafficking ring allegedly run by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay, I think that I've made my point. And, you know, for those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. And for those of you who continue to come back and like my podcasts and, you know, leave your commentary, and you know, some of you provide really good insight and include your own firsthand information and or other information you've been able to dig up. This said, be careful where you dig up information. In some cases, I have noticed that there's misinformation. This case from the very beginning has had its handlers. And before I sign off, again, I'm just going to remind you, David Boies, fixer, J. Stanley Pottinger, CIA. Some of the newspaper people covering this case, controlled opposition. So be careful where you get your information. before you think that it's part of the Epstein, let's say, holy grail. All right, guys, like the video. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.